Go.
All right, shall we get started?
Yeah, hello to the conference. Finally, we can start. So, I'm Eva.
And I'm Barry.
And we work at the Chrome Web DevTool team. And today we're going to tell you all about the fantastic features you've just seen in a slightly silent video.
Okay, hands up here who uses Chrome DevTools as their main DevTools. Like you can include Edge and all the other Chromium-based browsers. Firefox? A few Firefox. Safari? Okay, looks like Chrome's winning again. We'll take that as a winner.
Well, actually, we're very happy that DevTools, Chrome DevTools, are really used and loved by so many developers worldwide. And the DevTools team is really hard at work of improving it even further. So we listened to your feedback. We implemented a lot of features that me and Barry are gonna, is it better now? That me and Barry are gonna present to you today. We're gonna talk about AI assistance that now is available in multiple panels. And actually, since recently, it allows you not only to debug your problems in the browser, but also fix it directly in your code without leaving DevTools. We'll talk about the live metrics view. That is a great introduction to the performance debugging. And we will talk about performance trace improvements that we introduced to the DevTools. Finally, we'll share some tips about annotating and extending DevTools for better collaboration in the team.
Okay, so talking is fun and interesting, and trust me, I will talk all day if you let me. But I think it'll be much more interesting if you actually see some of this in action. So time permitting, we're running a little behind time in a minute, so we'll see. We'll spend the first third of this giving a bit of a presentation. Then we're going to ask you for some audience interaction. So we want you to suggest some sites that we've never seen before. We're going to see some of the things that we've demoed to you here and actually try it on the site for the first time. So we'll see how well this works. And maybe we'll do some performance analysis. Maybe we'll use AI to fix some sort of things or stuff like that. Really to actually just drill home what we're seeing here and actually see what we're doing now. So over the course of the next 35, 45 minutes while we're talking, have a think about that. Maybe it's your own site. Maybe it's a competitor site that you really want to embarrass on stage. Maybe it's a site that you absolutely hate using. We're going to ask for one or two suggestions out there at the end of this presentation. And then after that, will be some time for Q&A, and you can ask us what we didn't explain very well or any other questions.
So that's the plan. A quick mic check. Can you hear me right now well? Or I need to speak like this? Like this? Okay, I'll speak like this. Oh, no, we're here. Okay, so we will start with the feature that we recently built into DevTools to help you when things get hard when debugging websites. So the AI assistance coding is really getting popular among developers. A lot of us use it right now in our everyday workflow, either in our ADEs or in the different chat apps. This requires a lot of context switching between browser and your IDE. This is why we introduced the AI assistance panel directly into DevTools so that you can debug and use help and power of LLMs and Gemini directly in the browser without so much of context switching. It allows you also to quickly test what the LLM is proposing and to see if it will work in actual browser in action without context switching. So let's see how this works in the Elements panel. In the Elements panel, when you select an element, you get a little AI icon next to it. And when you click that tiny, tiny icon, you can directly open AI. It will directly open the AI assistance panel for you. It will allow you to interact with Gemini. You can query Gemini about the elements layout and styles. And with simple prompts like, can you center image on this page? Or why is my text overflowing its container? You can not only get actionable advice as to what is causing a particular styling issue, but you can actually fix the code directly in the browser. So if you are more visually inclined, now this is also an option. Like typing is sometimes a bit troublesome. So using this little camera icon in the prompt area, you can take advantage of the multimodality of the model. It means that you can very easily grab a snapshot to tell the browser, to tell DevTools, which part of the page it should fix for you. Let's see this in action. This is an example page. Immediately see that one of the thumbnails is standing out. There is a problem on the page, right? It doesn't have the right aspect ratio. So we would like to trim it to resemble the other images. Now, if I click the icon and click the camera icon, I can easily grab a snapshot. This snapshot will be passed on to the LLM, and I can ask it to fix my problem. It gives me some explanation on how to fix this issue. And I can immediately test it out in the browser. Now, as a last step of the what LLM gives me back is actually a code snippet. And if I click this continue button, it will actually apply it directly on the page, and we can see that the thumbnail got fixed. Now, the changes that the LLM applied to the page can be seen in the changes panel. It just displays a difference between the previous state and the current state using the normal heuristics of the difference panel, right? In green, it shows stuff that it added to the code, and in red, the lines that were removed. But this change is kind of temporary, right? It's very similar to as if you were editing styles manually in the styles in the elements panel. This means that if we reload the page, the change will be gone, right? And this is kind of sad. So we decided to change it. Since a few weeks, you can actually preserve the changes you make through LLM in the DevTools with just one click. This is how this works. This project is running on my local server, which means I have the code base for that page available on my local computer. If I connect my folder, where is my code base, to DevTools, I get this nifty apply to workspace button. And then by clicking it, these changes we made so far only in the browser will get preserved to the actual file system on our computer. Of course, first you need to set up that folder connected to the DevTools. It's called Workspace feature. You can find Workspace tab in the Sources panel. So how to set it up? First, you need to grant permissions because, of course, nobody wants DevTools or Gemini edit directly files that you didn't agree to be accessed on the file. So you need to grant the right permissions for the folder. And then you get that connection option in the sources panel, but also you get the apply to workspace feature in the LLM. In order to connect folder, you can either do it manually in the sources panel, or actually we now have a mechanism that is called automatic workspace discovery. How does automatic discovery work? if your local server is exposing a JSON file on a particular URL, it's called well-known app-specific Chrome DevTools JSON. This file is following a particular protocol called DevTools JSON. It's a very simple file. It just really gives a path to your local folder and some ID that the tools can recognize, okay, this is the folder for this particular workspace. If you expose such file on this URL, the DevTools will automatically pick it up and offer you the connect option in the workspace. You can either expose this URL yourself, or you can actually use one of the integrations that we're having. Angular right now supports it natively, so if you start a new project with Angular, it will expose this JSON file on this URL for you automatically. And if you're working with Vite-based projects, we offer a plugin that you can use in your project in order to get that URL exposed for you. You can read more about the automatic workspaces in this article on developer Chrome.com. Okay, so I would try to run you through an end-to-end AI-assisted coding example in DevTools. Let's hope it all works. So this is the Chrome.dev page. This is a little playground we built for you to try out different Chrome features. On Chrome.dev/DevTools subpage, you can see different riddles that you can solve with the help of DevTools. Feel free to check it out in your free time or in your work time, depending. So on the overflow subpage, we get a few riddles related to overflow. And here you can see in the water, there is an image of a diver. But this diver kind of fell off the screen, right? It's not fully visible. Obviously, it's a visual bug we're having. So what can we do? If we click on the SKI icon, we can simply ask, like, why is this element not visible on the screen? And the Gemini will give us some explanation why it thinks it might be the reason. So we can now take this advice and fiddle in the code, or we can take it further and actually ask Gemini to fix it on our behalf. Gemini comes up with a snippet of the code, and if we click continue, that yes, we want to apply the snippet, it will apply, dispatch to our code, and move the diver in the right place. Now, because I'm running this project on my local host, and I expose the DevTools JSON file, I get the connect option in my workspace. Because I have this connect option, the folder is also picked up by the Gemini in the conversation flow. As you can see, it displays it in the unsaved changes part of the conversation. Now, what I can do, I can click the Apply to Workspace button. I grant the right permissions in that step, and the change gets applied to my code base. The magical part here is that this project is actually using compiled CSS. So the source file is in SCSS, and the whole project uses Next.js framework. So here we also use AI agent to figure out how to translate the changes that were done in the CSS before to the source files on our local code base. It displays the proposed changes, and then we can either accept it or refuse it if it made an error. And if we accept it, we get notification that the changes were saved to disk. We can see those changes in our IDE, of course, and in the local files. But because we connected it to the DevTools, we also see it in the sources panel. In the sources panel, you get the workspace tab. You can go there and see all the changes that the Gemini applied to your code base. Here you can see that actually SCSS file was changed, not not CSS directly. And also you get a notification that some of the changes in that file were AI generated. Sometimes when there's a lot of changes and we mix manual changes with AI changes, we like to know where those changes come from. You can read a lot more about applying AI-assisted AI-assisted coding in styles in this article.
To performance, but the bulk of this talk is going to be about the improvements we've done to the performance panel. Now, I don't know how many of you are used to doing performance problems or have tried to look in there and been a bit scared, but I'm going to take you through the whole front to back of looking at performance issues, understanding them, maybe using a little bit of AI to help if you can't explain them yourself. So hopefully, if you've never done any performance tracing before, you'll be less intimidated by it and you'll be more willing to go in there and have a look, because we've done an awful lot on this panel. So this is a performance trace, and as Eva said to me in the past, this is quite intimidating whenever you first go in there.
I'm intimidated.
Yeah, I mean, how can you not be? There's an awful lot of information there. I have no idea what it means. It's a big flame chart. Once you're an expert in this, you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what it is. But the first time people go in there, they maybe have a look at it, then they kind of back away and say, yeah, I'm just going to leave it to it. Maybe I'll go and do that lighthouse. It seems a little bit easier for me. Because you don't know where to start with this sort of thing. And that's something that we've been trying to work on for the last 2 or 3 years. So we kicked off a project and I said, we're just going to have to see if we can make this better. Make it less intimidating, make it easier to follow, make it more friendly for people that are new to it, but at the same time not lose the power for those that are used to it. So, like whenever you first kicked it off, this is what you used to see in the performance panel: a big blank empty screen. Doesn't give you any information and just says, do one of those complicated traces and we'll see if we can get into it. Now, I don't know if you've been into it recently, but if you look into it recently, this is what you see. You immediately see, for the page you've loaded, some performance metrics. It's centered around the 3 core web vitals. I don't know if you heard those, but those are 3 metrics that the Chrome team launched 5 years ago now, I want to say, to measure key aspects of your performance. So LTP, which measures how long the largest content takes to load; CLS, which is all those annoying shifts. You start reading something and ad pops in and you lose your place and you're like, what's going on? And the most recent one, IMP, which is interaction to next paint. So from an interaction, how long does it take until the browser responds to that? Maybe not completely, maybe it's got to do some work, but at least it should give you some visual feedback that something's happened, your click's been registered, we're working on it. So as soon as you open a web page, you see those numbers. So without doing anything, you can see this website looks green. We'll come back to that in a second. And as you click around and move around this, those numbers are continually updating. So you can see the IMP numbers are moving, your CLS numbers might be moving. As you move to new pages, they're up continually updating. So it really is a live metric screen. You can actually see live what's happening. That can be incredibly useful whenever you're not sure where the performance issue is. Is it this hamburger menu? Is it this button? Is it that? You can sit there, play around, and actually see where the performance problem is, and then say, right, now is where I want to dig in and do a complete trace. You also get, one of the big problems is that we have typically nice developer laptops, and they're not always the laptops that our users are using. And we can't normally just ship out the beefy MacBook Pro to every one of our users, much as we'd like to do. So you're going to have to deal with the fact that your users are using less powerful laptops. So how do you bring?
Like, not everybody has such a good laptop as you do.
We'll see in a minute. So we need to bridge that gap between what you're seeing here and you're saying, hey, it's all green, there's no performance issues here, and what your user actually sees. So traditionally, what DevTools has been is what we call lab-based metrics. It's running something while your laptop is effectively the lab. It's not representative of what real life is and all the wild and varied different devices people have. So what we've done is we've now brought in some of the field metrics. So a few years ago, Chrome launched the Chrome User Experience Report, or CRUX, and that's what feeds the Core Web Vitals program that we measured. So when you first install Chrome, it says, are you happy to feedback anonymous data back to Chrome? And whenever you connect that up to DevTools, you can actually see the real user experience of this website. So first of all, you have to click the button, you have to accept it. So it's saying we will send this URL to Google to get the data, obviously, we need to get the data. And you can immediately now see on the left our local lab-based metrics, and on the right our users' experience. And you can see here already, even though I've got a really fast load time of LCP of 0.52 seconds, most of our users don't get that. Most of our users get 2.57 seconds. So immediately we can say, right, this is where we can concentrate on. The other problem is that was desktop. When I switched to mobile, we've also got an IMP problem. So again, that was totally masked before. We didn't know exactly where to look. Now we know we've got two problems here that we really want to look at. You can also then set up your DevTools and your performance trace appropriately. So we zoom in a little bit closer here. You can see most of the people on this website are mobile. That's not unusual. In fact, to be honest, this is a bit more desktop oriented than most websites. Most websites are up to 3/4 now on mobile. We can also see that 75% of our users are using similar to slow 4G throttling. So let's set that. You can see that's the recommended option, again, based on your real users. For CPU throttling, again, we have nice beefy laptops, and you're like, what should I use? Should I use 4x slowdown, 6x, 20x? Who knows? You just took a guess and tried it. But one thing we've added, now we don't have the real user data for this, but one thing we do have is we've got this calibration option. So the first time you run it, these will all be grayed out, but there's a calibrate option. You click on that, it will run some tests on your CPU, and it will figure out exactly what slowdown your desktop needs to simulate roughly a low-tier device or a mid-tier device. That means you are working on a beefy MacBook M4 latest thing. You might only get you might get 10x slowdown. If you're like me with my poor little M1 MacBook showing its age, it's recommending a 3.1x slowdown. So you working beside your colleagues should get similar sort of data by looking at this. So yeah, we can apply those, and then we can also flip over to see what we're looking at. Oh yeah, we can also see the origin level data. So this is the data for all the site. So here we can see we've got CLS problems. So some of the other pages on the site might have a lot of that shifty content whenever ads slot in and that sort of thing. And that's particularly useful if you don't have URL level data, if we don't have enough information there to give that. Okay, there's lots more information as well whenever you look at that. If you hover over that, you get these LCP breakdowns, so these subparts where you can see how much time is being spent in it. It's quite often to see that you've got a super fast connection, your time to first byte is super quick because you're probably sitting 3 feet from the data center, it's a warm cache, you've been reloading several times, whereas your users might be coming from the new, overnight, all your caches have been empty, your edge cache has been overloaded, and looking at a page that hasn't been cached for a while or something like that. So it's good there, again, to just calibrate yourself with what your users are seeing. Similarly, IMP subparts, we've got this interaction track. As you're clicking around, you see other bits of information in there. You can click on that for more information. You get the breakdown of how much time it's spending in each of those things.
Okay, so this live metrics view really gives you a good starting point to see where you stand with your page. But what if you want to dig deeper into all the issues and actually solve them, not only see the problems, but see the solutions? What do we do, Barry?
Okay, so that's where you drive into the traditional performance trace. So a performance trace, what it is, for those that don't know, is it basically runs the website, either a page load or a bit of interactions, and it's collecting a lot of information, like way too much information to it, and then it tries to present that in a visual manner. Traditionally, that's been in this sort of flame chart, which represents all the JavaScript executing on the main thread, and boxes show longer boxes, meaning they've been executing for longer. Those trees, or whenever it's going into sub-functions and that sort of thing. But again, as I say, a bit icky to look at, where do I start? To record a trace, there's two ways, so you've no excuses not to do this. In the bottom right, so after you set up your field, you calibrate your DevTools, you can then hit record. Also in the top left, for those more old school of us, it's quicker for doing a second trace and a third trace and so on. You have two options. You can hit record, which just leaves the page as is, hits record, you click around, you do whatever you need to do to try and replicate the performance issue, and then you hit stop. The second option is record and reload. That's basically for investigating page load issues. So what it'll do is it will start recording, it will reload the page, and once the page is finished loading, it will automatically stop recording, and it will say, this is what your page looks like loading, because a lot of performance issues tend to be in page load. So if we click on that reload and record, you see this does take a few seconds. So it's sitting there, it's gathering so much information that you're not able to do anything. So this is why using the live metric screen first, try and identify what your performance problem is, and only then going into the trace is a good way of going through it. When you load it, you get a slightly different view than you did in the past. And again, there's an awful lot of data here, but don't worry, we're going to take you through it. So for those that aren't familiar with it, you get, have I missed one? Oh, no, I don't. You get this mini map at the top, which shows all the screenshots of what happened during that trace. In this case, a page load trace. You can see bits coming in, the headline, then the image, and so on, that sort of thing. You get all the JavaScript executing that you can just see at the top there, all those little blobs of paint, and so on. You get the network track, which is all the network requests that are made. That's very typical during page load. During sort of interaction performance traces, you might not even get any network requests, in which case we'll just hide this track for you. You get the insights toolbar. I'm not going to talk about that yet. That's a very exciting part of it, but we'll come back to that in a minute. And then you get the main thread, which was traditionally the typical part of this. And again, there's a lot of detail in here. There's a lot of different tracks. You can go into what JavaScript's executing, what your rendering pipeline's doing, what your GPU's doing, and that sort of thing. At the bottom are those performance metrics I talked about before. So when's the navigation happen? When's the LCP happen? When's your FCP and so on. And then finally, you get your details panel. So if you click on things, you get a lot more detail when it goes on there. The first problem that people have is using this. I don't know anyone that's used it in the past. Have you tried to do that? If you try and zoom or move your mouse, everything sort of moves in a really weird, unintuitive way. So if you've ever been scared about that, click this button. Actually, I'm going to switch over and show it in light mode. It's a bit easier to see here. There's basically two options. The modern option, which is the sensible option, and the classic option, which is just stupid. We haven't been able to change the default yet. I'm pushing for it. But some people are used to it. We don't want to annoy the old people who are doing that. But I do strongly encourage you to try the modern option. Basically means when you scroll, it scrolls. And when you shift scroll or command scroll, it will zoom. And it's much more sensible. So if you've ever been put off in the past, try that. We also have trace history. So you can flick back to that live metric screen by clicking the home button, or you can do that drop down. You can take several traces. You can try with those different calibration options. Try slow 4G, slow 5G, and we'll show you both the URL and the trace conditions it was done under. We didn't used to show this in the past. It's just like a nice small quality of life improvement there, so you can actually compare your two traces and say, oh yes, whenever I slow it down, it does get worse. Yeah, so as I say, moving around the performance trace traditionally was a little bit unintuitive. So we made quite a few just small changes to try and make it a little bit nicer. First of all, we're going to get rid of this insight side panel. So there's a little toggle at the top. You can hide that. You can show it again with that. As I say, we will come back to that. Eva's going to talk a good bit about that because we're very happy with that feature. But for now, we're just going to put that away and concentrate on the old traditional performance trace. So first of all, there's various zooming options. You can use the mini map at the top. You can just actually zoom in. You can select an area that you want to look at. Maybe that's where all the JavaScripts are doing. You can use, for the old school gamers of you can press WASDF to zoom in, zoom out, look left, look right. You can use your mouse. You can use those little bars at the side and do that. So there's a lot of ways to zoom in there and say, hopefully a bit more intuitive now. We've also added this little line, so as you're moving around that mini-map at the top, you can see the blue line and see where it's actually going at the bottom. Small, as I say, quality of life improvements, but they just make it a little bit easier so you don't get lost as much. We've also added dimming to a lot of the performance trace here. So as you can, as you're clicking over bits, you can see in the mini-map, well, maybe you can't see that, but anyway, in the top left, you can see which bit that you're actually looking at in the mini-map. And then similarly, sorry, we'll come back to that in a minute. The other things we've added is breadcrumbs, so you can select a bit of the trace and say, I want to zoom in this, and that traditionally went out of sync with what you're seeing there, so that the screenshots didn't line up with what you're seeing. When you now click on that, zoom in, so it takes up the whole thing, so your screenshots now line up to your map. You can flick back and forth, Firefox, by the way, has had this for a while, but don't tell them we stole it from them. But it's just a nicer way of being able to zoom in and zoom out to the different bits of the trace. Going back to the dimming feature, quite often what you'll see is you've got your code that you care about and a lot of third-party code that you have no control over, whether that's frameworks, whether it's ads, whether it's our favorite Google Tag Manager coming in and destroying our pages. So you can actually dim out that code and say, I just want to concentrate on what the code that's under my control. That's not to say that third-party code isn't a performance problem. It often is. But if it's out of your control, there's no point in actually looking at that. Or at the very least, you should be able to see what performance problems are caused by third-party code and what performance problems are caused by my code. Similarly, you can also highlight it. So you can sit there and, as I say, that Google Tag Manager thing, you can see what exactly is it doing on that page compared to what my code's doing on the page. And finally, going back to that framework stuff, you might want to hide stuff completely. So the dimming is kind of useful, but if you're not going to look at your React hardcore internals and you just want to look at your function that's being called at the top, you can right-click, you can collapse those big, huge flame charts and say, I don't want to show this anything under. I don't want to show any instances of this function anywhere in the flame chart, or I just want to add this whole script to our ignore list and see that. And at the top, you can also set various sort of regexes and stuff like that to say ignore these sorts of things. Again, I just want to stress that that doesn't mean that they aren't performance problems. So be a little bit careful about hiding stuff that you're not actually hiding actual issues here. Okay, at this point, I'm going to hand back to Eva to talk about the more exciting performance insights.
Yeah, so all these changes Barry showed us are really useful, and I really wish he explained all of that to me a few years ago. Maybe I would become less scared of the performance panel. I hope you enjoy the little ride there. But the truth is, I did get scared of performance panel before. That's why I intuitively fall back to Lighthouse. How many of you use Lighthouse in your development workflow? Exactly. So that's why I think Lighthouse became such a popular tool, because it allows you to kind of take a step back and focus maybe on some starting points. Even if you know how to operate very well in the performance panel, you actually need a lot of expertise to know where to start. And Lighthouse gives you nice scores that allow you to, see the overall health of your page. And also, inside the audits, you get a lot of useful information about where to start your investigation. What Lighthouse cannot do, though, is to point you later on where are the exact fixes hidden in your performance trace that can help you make your site faster. So what if we combined the power of Lighthouse simplicity with the powerful tools we get in performance trace? Well, that's exactly how the Performance Insights sidebar was born. In the Performance Insights sidebar, you get very similar insights to what was previously presented in Lighthouse, and also they will be ordered in a way that shows which fix gives you the biggest wins in terms of performance. So very similarly to Lighthouse. And the insights that are kind of passed and nothing needs to be done will be marked as passed. This really gives you a nice way to focus on the most impactful things first. For example, here we have a longest contentful paint insight. It shows you, similarly to what Barry showed before on the live metrics, what was the element that caused the particular score for the LCP. But at the same time, when you focus on this insight, it highlights the important information of the main trace. So you know which parts of the main trace are interesting to you. In this case, we're looking into LCP phases, and those phases get overlaid on the main track. In a similar way, you can investigate things like layout shifts, render blocking requests, forced reflows, and many other. You can even see a tree map similarly to Lighthouse to go really in-depth into your JavaScript bundle. Now,
Yeah, and now we did a lot of soul searching with those lighthouse audits. We combed through them all. We got rid of some of the older ones. We combined some of the other ones. We added some new ones. And we're actually bringing this stuff back to Lighthouse. So if you look at the latest Lighthouse, be it on Page Speed Insights or your performance panel, this isn't working. Oh, there we go. You have an option at the minute to switch over to the Insights version of Lighthouse. It's fairly similar, but it's just slightly different audits and stuff like that. That's going to become the default over the summer, and then eventually we're going to get rid of the old audits. So you can go in there and have a look now and actually do it. And the idea is that if you run a Lighthouse trace and then go into the performance trace, you're not suddenly starting afresh and new. You're kind of linking between the two, and you can actually see those. And yeah, it wouldn't be a tech conference talk now without mentioning AI again. So we've also added AI to the insights and to various other parts of the performance trace. So you don't know what one of this insights means, you can just have a conversation with Gemini and sit there and say, what the heck does this even mean? Barry might know what it means, but I have no idea, or how do I fix it, or whatever.
Yeah, so how does it work in detail? In particular insights, you get this little Ask AI button. When you click it, the context of that particular insights, together with part of your performance trace, will get passed to Gemini, and you can get an explanation of, what you can do with it. It works like this. You click on the button, the context is selected for you, and you can just ask the query.
By the way, those are just suggested queries. You can type whatever you want in there to have a conversation.
Yeah, we suggest a few of the ones that we find useful, but of course the prompt can be whatever you want, as long as it kind of relates to that particular query. And you get hopefully actionable advice of how to fix particular insights. It's especially useful for people that don't debug performance problems on an ongoing basis, or just looking for quick wins. And while you're looking into insights, you get a lot of other info about your page. And in particular cases, AI can be helpful in other panels too. For example, here we have the legacy JavaScript insight. In this particular insight, we see a script that requires our attention. It's flagged as having some problems with the legacy JavaScript. So when you click on the name of that file, you're taken straight to the sources panel. And in the sources panel, next to the script, again, you have this little SKI icon. You can click on it and ask questions that relate to that script. For example, what does this script do? Why is it present on this page? Is it safe to remove that script? Is there a newer version of that script? And so on. Very similarly, in the same insight, you can click the network icon instead of the name of the file. This way you're taken to the network panel. And in the network panel, of course, you can see all the details about this request. And again, you see the little SKI icon. When you click it, no. Well, when you click it, you're taken to the AI assistance panel, and similarly, you can ask questions, for example, how to make this particular request faster, what headers are present on that request, and so on. It's really helpful with debugging.
Okay, I've got two last things I want to share with you in the performance trace, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty and actually see this in action, because there's a lot more fun whenever you actually see it being used and doing it. First of all, it's annotations. So this picture is about 10 years old, or 15 maybe. This is someone from the Wikimedia team, and they've printed out one of those big long performance traces, and they're going through it. They're adding post-it notes, and oh yeah, must look at this and have a look at that, and this is a potential problem and stuff like that. This is great. I'm not entirely sure it's the most sustainable or achievable way of doing this sort of thing. We don't all work in the same office and stuff like that, but we like the concept. So we added annotations to the performance trace. So you can go in there, you can double click things, you can highlight it and say, hey, this is something to investigate later, or why is this so slow, or what's keeping this sort of thing. And then you can save this trace, you can share it with your team, they can have a look at it, or just for yourself, if you spend a lot of time analyzing something, you don't want to start again from scratch when you come back to it tomorrow. You can even highlight ranges of sections. You can link things. Here's where we're going to highlight a section and say, yeah, whatever, nothing much happening here or something like that. And because it's the theme of the day already, we've also added AI annotations to this.
Yeah, of course, AI jumps in again, and if you feel particularly uninspired about adding a name, a label for a particular event, the AI will try to analyze the part of the trace you're trying to bring attention to and propose a label for it. You can try a few times until you're kind of happy with the result, or you can just overwrite it with your own words, of course.
That's helpful because it can analyze the thing and actually give you a sensible name for the function. Sometimes it can't. It's only as good as the inputs it gets, but yeah, it can be definitely helpful. And then the last thing is extensibility. So I know a lot of people have your own knowledge about your stuff, or you're using a framework. So we've built a new API where in your JavaScript code, you can add call outs to DevTools and say, hey, DevTools open, add this little bit of section here. The way it works is you make a couple of calls saying, this is important things, whatever. So it's kind of similar to the annotations in that it will highlight a bit of the trace and say, this is where hydration's starting. This is where I'm starting to do this. This is where I'm starting to do that. And then it will give you a custom track with those sorts of information in line with the actual performance trace. What's probably more exciting there is that we're seeing frameworks doing this. So Angular v12 announced this at Google I/O last week. Hi, Mark, by the way. So it's got that built in. You set ng Angular profile, I think is the directive you give to it, and it will automatically fill in those things, and you can see when Angular components are hydrating, whenever they're being run, and that sort of thing. So again, it takes the performance trace, which might be an alien language to you, and kind of puts it closer to the actual framework language that you might be used to there. So if there's any framework authors in the room, let's come and speak to me. We'd love to see this rolled out more. I'll show you how easy it is and that sort of thing. Okay, and that's pretty much it. So here's another quick video of all the things we talked about, including some of the things we didn't get around to. Okay, so whenever you're stuck, whether it's performance issue or other issues, you can now ask AI in DevTools, and hopefully some of you are less intimidated now about addressing performance issues and having a look there. So strongly encourage you, if you've never looked at the performance panel, to have a look now. I think it's easier for newcomers to come there, but I think we've kept the power for your hardcore performance engineers that aren't going to be lost there and going to find a lot of these things useful. We've a great documentation site that we spend an awful lot of time keeping up to date at developer.chrome.com/docs/devtools. And we've also our new in DevTools series where we do a lot of YouTube videos about some of the new features that we're doing there. So we encourage you to check those out. But as I say, I think it's easier to see some of these things in action. So we'll try and we'll look at things. Does anyone want to volunteer their website? Come on, don't be shy. Anyone?
Also, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Oh, come on. Say again? Mark?
Just a question for the live stream. Do we need a mic for people asking questions?
Oh, no, they're just giving the website. Market.ai? Smartly? Oh, I don't even know what Smartly is. What's Smartly? Oh, well, that's looked slow to load for a start. Okay. So here we can see one
I
is...
think Smartly is sponsoring the conference, right? Be careful, Barry.
Oh, am I about to insult one of the sponsors? Loaded quicker the second time there. Let me just have a look. Have I got...
Okay, so what you can see is actually, well, you could see a moment ago where the live metrics.
Yeah, sorry. Oh, there we go. Well, actually, that's not fair because I just moved things. Second time it seems a bit faster. I think it's this pop-up cookie, the cookie banner that's taking a while. We can see that the real users are getting a slightly slower time there, and most of it is taking a while to actually render the icon. Have you got the... Hold on a second here. We'll try and do something fancy. So just there. Ooh. It doesn't work that well. Where'd it go? Okay, so yeah, just at the bottom, we can see there's a lot of time spent waiting for it. So it's got all the resources it thinks it needs to actually display this LCP, but it's just taking a while to do it. That's fairly typical with cookie banners. And this is another thing that devs tend to do. We turn off that cookie banner because it's annoying, let's be honest, and we never see it again. Meanwhile, a lot of our users are coming to our site for the first time. They're getting that cookie banner, and that's what they experience as a slow website. So I'd say that's the biggest problem here on the LCP side. IMP is looking pretty good, even on mobile. If we switch over to mobile, it's slightly slower, but that's pretty good. CLS is not bad. Now, I did notice whenever I first loaded it, there was a bit of jittering going on there, again, with the cookie banner. So overall, I'd say your cookie banner is the main sort of problem on this website. And for a website with video and that sort of thing showing on, that's not too bad. But I would look and see if we can load that cookie banner earlier. Or the other trick is if you can break up those paragraphs so it doesn't show as the main one. But even then, it's still quite an annoying pop-up that people see. So whatever you can do to improve that. So I'll go in and show you some of the insights. When we do the performance trace. I'm an old man, so I'm going to flip over to glasses here for a second. Yeah, so as we said there, whenever you flick on these things, we automatically zoom in the appropriate part of the trace, so you don't need to move around there. Here we can see what this big delay is. You can go in and see what else is running. I see Google Tag Manager, usually a fun one that's doing this. There's an awful lot of script running here. We can see this is what it's taking to do to create the longest bit, which again is a marketing ad. This is render blocking, it's marking it in red. So that's probably the bit that's causing the biggest problem. So I don't know what RTP.js is, but let's see if we can, oh, sorry, no, that's the wrong one. Let's see if we can ask the Magic AI what it thinks. What does this script do? So never having seen this before, this could all go horribly wrong, but it will sit there and say, it's responsible for loading, figuring, and executing the marketing RTP functionality on a web page, including, okay, so it's basically the cookie banner and stuff like that. So even though I've not seen the script and it's minified and it's, you know, if I was looking at this myself and actually trying to figure this out, other than the name, I'd probably be guessing. AI is much better at actually doing this. So as a self-professed AI cynic, some of this stuff is actually quite useful to actually use this and do it. The other thing you see is sometimes old JavaScript snippets that you don't need anymore. What is this? This is an IE10 hack that you had to do back in the old days. Do you really need that anymore? So it can recognize frequent sort of snippets of JavaScript that people have on websites that they don't need anymore. Or you're polyfilling some old JavaScript functionality that's long been available in all JavaScript browsers. So yeah, that's kind of it. And as I say, you don't need to dig into this trace anymore. You can kind of use these insights, which will automatically pull you into where you need to look and what you need to look and see. So that's pretty much it, unless anyone's got any other website they want us to look at. Otherwise, we'll move on to questions. Sorry, somewhere over here. Netflix.
Maybe you want to try to type it?
Oh. Careful the lead, sir.
No hacking, please.
All right. Keep it safe for work now, please. This bit.
The bubble is very back.
Okay, so we flip back, and even though we were in this trace, the live metric screen's kept up to date. This is looking a bit scarier. Don't know if you work at this or you're just trying to embarrass your competitor. So here we can see that all of the metrics are having problems. LCP, which is traditionally the most difficult one, is taking about 3.5 seconds. Google recommends 2.5 seconds or better. This looks like time to first byte is taking a long time, so it's taking a second. So that's when you make your request before you even get the HTML back. So that is, you cannot do anything faster than that. So that's your minimum time. And a second is a bit longer than we'd really like that. Then it's taking 2 seconds to actually recognize the LCP resource and load it. I don't know what it is, but we can see, okay, so hidden behind this annoying cookie banner, this is what's taking a while to load. That suggests probably that it was not in the HTML, it was loaded by JavaScript. Maybe it's the carousel that loads of JavaScript and does that. So the more you can get to that HTML, the better you can do that. CLS, I'm going to show you this if I can. We'll come back to CLS in a minute. I think the performance trace is still a better option for that one. INP, so it's taking 800 milliseconds. That's nearly a second. You're clicking on something, and for a second, you've no idea whether the browser registered that or not. So maybe you click it again, and nothing happens. You click it again, and suddenly that menu opens and closes 3 times, and it's really, really annoying. This is quite often more difficult to actually figure out what the issue is. So if we hit our slow down, and the best thing here, if you don't have field data to actually know what it is to just click around, try different things, try your typical user journeys, add to basket, check out, that sort of thing, and see what's slowing slow. Like when I sit there, maybe search is quite another one. Seems fairly fast, so yeah, I'd need to dig in a bit more to actually find exactly what the problem is, but maybe you as a site owner have a better idea about, oh yeah, this is the one we know that 90% of our users look through and do that. On the CLS side, as I say, if we do a performance trace, takes a couple of seconds. So there's a handy thing that we added in the last year where you can actually see the CLS issues. Where are we? Layout shifts. So if you hover over this, let's make this a bit bigger so we can actually see it. Oh, sorry, I need to get rid of that. No. Right. So these are the blocks of shifts happening. And as you do it, you can see, okay, something that purple moved. I'm not sure what that is because I can't actually see it there. Is that something underneath? Oh, so that's probably the cookie banner loading. Maybe it's loaded with display none, and then something comes in there. So it will also, in the details area, give you, if you click on this, footer star inserted is the problem. So maybe the footer is loading, and then that's also fairly typical with client-side apps. You load the header, you load the footer, and there's a div in the middle which is loading your app, and there's no min height on it. So the footer's right up there, and then it moves it all down. So yeah, those are the ways that you can kind of debug CLS.
Daniel, we have time for one more, or we should wrap up?
Someone over there with a question? No?
You can do one more site.
Name.com, as in N-A-M-E. Okay. Nail your business. Nail your name, build your business. So here I'm seeing that the biggest issue is INP. Now, some of the INP problems are cookies banner related. So you get your cookie banner, and as soon as you hit OK, it loads let's just say a lot for polite company of tracking things and stuff like that. Oh, that's not too bad. So that's normally a big issue, but that looks fairly good. So again, your best bet here is, oh, there. So as soon as I opened that menu, we saw we had a 240-second INP delay. Quite often what people do is they'll delay JavaScript until people actually click on it. And that's great for the first page performance load, but then as soon as you do it, that first click is actually slow. Didn't seem too bad there. 240 milliseconds is kind of just outside the good zone for us, but it can be an awful lot longer, particularly if you're in a slower network and that sort of thing. So lazy loading JavaScript is good. Lazy loading all JavaScript until you really need it means that that first interaction really gets that hit. So quite often, what a better pattern is to delay it, but then once the page is loaded and it's kind of calmed down, there's a bit more time to breathe, then load the stuff rather than wait for the user interactions to actually do that. Other than that, it's looking pretty good. We've green numbers. A bit slower here, but that could be my own throttling and that sort of thing. But from the field numbers, we're looking pretty good. Cool. So I hope that was helpful, and I think we've got some time for Q&A now. If anyone does have any questions.
Quite a few questions here. So first, give a round of applause for Barry and Ewa. Most thumbs-up question we have here is probably the most consistent question when it comes to AI in general and integrating into our workflows is how concerned do we need to be about privacy, especially in regards to letting the DevTools go into our own IDEs, make code changes locally for us. Do we need a business license to prevent our code from being used to improve the AI overall?
So to use AI in DevTools, you need to opt in. And over there in the opt-in screen, you can read all about how the data is used. Generally, the processing happens on the server. So as soon as you send something, like your prompt in DevTools, it goes to the server. This might be a concern, especially in business setting. So you can control whether this feature is available for individual users through an enterprise policy. You don't need a business license to enter enterprise policy. Any individual user can set it up. So maybe the name is a bit misleading that it's called enterprise policy. But yes, you can disable this feature for privacy reasons. Right now, the queries, all prompts happen on Gemini on the server. This said, we also have now built-in AI APIs available in Chrome. They're still in experimental state, so stay tuned. Maybe there will be some good news for you soon.
Yeah, I mean, we did look at the on-device AI is a natural answer to this sort of stuff, particularly for DevTools, which takes a lot of, you need a fairly large context window to gather a lot of information, whether it's performance trace or the details. They just weren't there yet. So we did experiment with that because we know it is an issue for some people. But at the minute, the server was proving much better and stuff like that. But it does mean that we're going to lose some people. But I do encourage you to check out whenever you link. There's a T&C's thing written in non-lawyer speak that explains exactly what we do. We use it for, what we don't use it for. I think particularly in Europe, it's a lot more strict and stuff like that. So maybe it's not as big a deal as you do. But check those out. And I'm not a lawyer and that sort of thing.
Yeah, sounds good. Another question we have here, we have time for a few here. So is there a way to integrate metrics analysis into these pipelines? Also, are there plans to support integrations with things like Playwright for collecting metrics?
This for the performance side, I'm presuming.
I imagine this is going to be regarding performance.
We're big into our field metrics because I think we've far too often in the past looked at lab-based stuff, and it is very limited depending on what machine you're running on, that sort of thing. So Lighthouse is a great tool, and it's one I use myself all the time, and it's good for spotting regressions. But typically, it only does a page load. You don't know what people are doing. You don't know what devices people are using, what networks they're on, what user journeys they're doing there. It's easy to make a lot of assumptions and things like that. So in Lighthouse, there is various budget tools you can check and make sure that it doesn't extended, but you add a build step and suddenly your JavaScript increases in size and that sort of things. You can check those sorts of audits. But I think for the actual metrics themselves, field data is much better. Now, that does mean you can't see it until after it's gone live and been out there for a little while to gather some information and stuff like that. But honestly, that is the creme de la creme. And hopefully with the Chrome user experience report, we're making that more available. So even those people who don't have a dedicated RUM solution can get some idea of what's going on there. So yes, it's possible, but not always the best way.
TBD. Okay. Great. Another one here is, can the LLM be changed? For example, towards a self-hosted one like Ollama?
Right now, no. We always talk to Gemini, and we also do a lot of fine-tuning of the stuff we send. The primary reason is, especially for performance, when you run a performance trace, this is very heavy load, and you need to be mindful of how you build your query to get useful results. For example, when you hit the SKI button in the insight, only basic information about particular insight is sent to Gemini. And then Gemini or AI agent, actually, in this case, is deciding whether it needs more information or not. It has ability to probe and ask your performance trace to deliver more information about things it finds interesting, about particular image or particular resource being loaded. That's why we limit it for Gemini right now.
I'd also say we're at early stages with all this sort of stuff. AI is very new for all of us, Google included. So there has been some talk about the stuff Eva talked about with the inbuilt AI in the browser. Again, that's Gemini only at the moment for Chrome. There's talk about how do we standardize that and how do we do it, or do your OS provide the AI or that sort of thing. So I think a lot of this is going to be changing over the next years. But the minute these early stages, we're sticking with what we know and what we do. And some of the other ones, like Gemini, at the minute, what we're offering is included. You don't need a subscription or anything. Not to say that won't ever change, but the minute that sort of thing, with some of the other models, you need a subscription. So setting up that model and that link is out of scope for the moment, but who knows where the future will go.
All the AI features are under active development and are in the experimental status. So we actually proactively seek your feedback. So anytime you try it and have, for example, a feature request for a different model or for a different mode or to support something that is not supported right now, please feel free to submit an issue to the Chromium project. It's really very closely monitored, and we're really happy to receive any feedback, positive or negative, from you.
Great. Let's do, I think, just maybe two more here. We had a couple regarding the annotations in the performance panel. I thought that was quite interesting myself. But questions we had around that was, is it possible to prompt Gemini using those annotations and those notes? And there's another one about, like, how can you share those across teams? I think there's mention of a JSON file, but can you prompt a Gemini regarding those annotations and those notes? And how can you share those across team members?
So at the moment, no. So you can do various things with AI. There's the insights we talked about, and you can ask AI. You can right-click on any of the trace bits and say, ask about this. That's kind of going to use anything that was used for the AI of the prompt anyway. If you're adding your own, hey, this is blah-de-blah-de-blah, JavaScript, no, at the minute it doesn't take that in there, I don't think. But that's an interesting point. If you're giving it information, then it would be good to pass that.
I like that.
Second?
I like that.
Yeah, so we'll take that to the DevTools team. And sorry, there was one other question?
I think it was about shareability. So what you can do right now, you can download the trace and upload it to the Trace Cafe, which is kind of a browser for trace. Of course, other developer can also upload it to the DevTools, but you can also upload it to the Trace Cafe, get the URL, and share it with anyone on the team, and your annotations will be included there.
Yeah, so there's a download option. Sorry, I just lost the screen here, which will save it as a JSON file. You can go to trace.cafe, you can upload it, that gives you a URL. It's actually got DevTools built into it. It's really cool, so you can zoom and look through and that sort of thing. That's a great way of sharing things, and it will save the annotations there and do that. For those, again, corporate environments that aren't happy sharing those sorts of things, you can just download it, email it to your colleagues, save it in the group drive, whatever, and they can upload it and see it there.
Okay, so you're effectively able to share a snapshot and still have that be fully interactive and navigatable.
Yeah, and as I say, is there any chance to get on the screen back there for a second? That's where annotations really shine. So if I take this trace and I hit save, so you can save without annotations. If you're insulting your boss in their annotations and you don't want to do it, you can't do that. But if you save it here, we'll just save a JSON file. Trace.cafe, which is not an official product. Paul Irish, one of the DevTools team, created this. I think it's brilliant. So I then take the trace, drag it on here for a couple of seconds, This will give us a unique URL that you can share in team chat or whatever, or even what we get is people sharing it with us saying, here's a bug, hey, here's, and we're like, can you upload it to trace.cafe and do it? And as you can see, in this website, we basically have the full DevTools, so we can do everything that we want to do here. We've got the full insights with all the zooming capabilities and stuff like that. So if you add an annotation to there, that will show there. It's quite a nice way of sharing bug reports for the DevTools team, by the way.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Then I think just the last one here. Given your relationships with Google, could you provide a free trial for Google Ultra AI for everyone at Future Frontend 2025?
That's not under the DevTools team remit, but yeah, we'll ask.
We can look into that.
Awesome.
Give stickers.
Perfect. Well, let's give up another round of applause for Ewa and Barry for this great talk.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
One more thing to note before we all head out for our first hallway session here. How we're going to manage the questions is in between each session, we're going to end up clearing the questions that are in the platform currently so that we can manage the popularity of the questions per session. So if you see your question go missing after that session is over, that's what happened. We're just kind of cleaning up in between sessions. So if we don't get to your question, please track down the speakers and ask them directly. I'm sure they'll be happy to interact and chat further about all of these topics. So with that, thank you so much for the first talk. We will be back here in just a little bit. Thank you.